Night Search. I'm Eddie Middleton in Memphis, and I'm talking with Laura Knight tonight. And we were talking about her work in exorcism, and we're leading up to a discussion of her work on the Matrix. But with just a few more things I want to ask you about the exorcism thing. And you were talking about this woman that the man got the possession from to begin with because he was having sex with her, and that's when the possession took hold of him. Exactly how does that work? Is his soul like more open during that time? I've heard Al Bielek was on our show last week, and he said at the point of sexual orgasm that the conscious and subconscious unite, and that would be a time when they could program people, like with the Montauk, thing where they had the Montauk boys and they did those kind of things. Would that be a time when one would be more open to be possessed?
Well, that's certainly a good comparison because it does seem to be so. The problem comes in, I think, it goes back again to this self-serving agenda. Whenever two people interact with one another, the chief problem seems to be that they are interacting with an individual who has a certain, say, physical appearance. They then project onto this person with this certain physical appearance qualities that they may not possess. We all are probably pretty familiar with this because of our relationships with other people, that very often we think somebody is something, and then after a period of time we discover that who we thought they were is not who they are.
Right.
Sometimes it's very heartbreaking to come to that realization.
Yes, I've been through a few of those scenarios.
Yeah, especially if you're married to the person and you have children with them, and then you finally have to realize or face the fact that this person is not at all who you thought it was, and then either you decide you're going to like them as they are, or that you can't live with them as they are.
I was thinking of Shakespeare in one of his sonnets, talking about his mistress. He said, "I swore thee fair, and thought thee bright, but thou art as black as hell, as dark as night."
Well, there you have it. So what happens is that when two people interact, and if they have, each of them, a false image of the other, they are each interacting in a self-serving way. I mean, I'm trying to convey a kind of a very subtle concept here. Mm-hmm. So when at the point of orgasm, they are each believing deep in their heart something about the experience and the other person that is essentially a lie, because it has no basis in objective reality.
Mike could comment that the moment of sexual orgasm, one is the most vulnerable, in a state of maximum deception. That's it.
Right, and if you are in this deep belief in a lie, even if you're believing this lie very innocently, then you attract into you lying forces. And depending upon the depth of the lie and the strength of the lie and the power of the individual soul believing the lie, probably resonates into the universe and attracts into that void a matching frequency.
That gives a whole different twist of meaning to the saying lying with somebody.
Yeah.
It's a euphemistic way of talking of about sexual intercourse.
Yeah, so I hope that kind of explains how it works, because once again we're talking about frequencies, we're talking about energies, we're talking about the universe as waveforms of frequency and energy, and when you produce frequencies and energies inside yourself, and those frequencies and energies intensify through the electromagnetic activities that go on during sexual intercourse and at the point of orgasm, you are indeed very vulnerable to that which you believe. If you believe a lie, you are vulnerable to a lie.
And being possessed by lying forces.
Right.
And that's how he came to be possessed.
Right. Right. So.
Well, what was the final outcome with his story and with the woman he was associated with? How did it all finally play out?
Well, after I nearly killed myself taking care of his situation, and I spent, probably 4 or 5 hours a day for, 10 days afterward counseling with him. It took me several days before I was even able to play the tape to him to explain to him what had happened to him. Because, like I said, what do you do when somebody thinks they just have a self-esteem problem? You break it to them gently or as gently as you can that, hey, you had a demon. This was serious. And he was feeling really good, and, we got him to the point where he was in really good shape. And then I played the tape for him. He understood what had happened, what had gone on. I explained to him, listen, you have just had major surgery here. We got you all cleaned out. The cancer's gone. We've got you bandaged up. You're all sewn up. Do not play in the dirt. And he was good for a few weeks. And then he began having contact with her again, which he really couldn't avoid because they had a child together.
Yeah.
And the contact with her led to, of course, ultimately being reinfested, and he called me in a panic. And at that point, I did not see any reason, if a person cannot take their medicine, if they can't stay out of the dirt, and I knew at this point in time that, to put it bluntly, those some bitches were out to get me.
Yeah.
And the next time I worked with this guy, they were going to come back with, with reinforcements. They were going to be laying in wait for me.
Yeah, I hear that they do bring in heavy reinforcements during some of these exorcisms.
Oh, yeah. So at that point, I told him that I was not going to do another exorcism, that there were other ways and means that he would have to work on himself, that if he was uncomfortable enough to be motivated to work on himself, that he would have to do certain work in order to prepare himself to eject this thing more or less by the strength of his own will, which in the ultimate sense, that's where it has to end. It has to end with the person doing the work on themselves to be able to take care of this sort of thing themselves. I gave him a whole series of tapes, I gave him books, I gave him a whole, program of things to do, and it was just too much like work. It was easier to go play in the dirt and then go back and have somebody clean him up.
Yeah, but what about the woman? Now, was she seeking help for her possession, or was she not even really aware of being possessed herself?
Well, he brought her to me at one point during the course of this whole interaction for an interview, and I talked to her, and I actually, in order to even schedule an interview with her, I said, I want you to write an essay for me. And I want you to, write into this essay something about your background, something about your thoughts, your feelings about things. And she wrote about 20 pages. And I still have that 20 pages, and you have never read 20 pages of more revolting, disgusting rambling in your entire life. And, this girl was in a really bad way, and yet she would sit in front of me and use the foulest language you could possibly imagine, talking about, well, yeah, I went to the bar and I went outside and we, blankety-blanked and blankety-blanked, and yeah, there was 5 guys, and oh, I loved it, and so on and so forth. And then when I mentioned the idea of spirit attachment or, possession or whatever, well, if I have any problems like that, I'll just go down to the church and they'll take care of it for me.
Yeah, they did already.
Well, but there was no point in telling her that, because when I pointed this out to her, she actually got very angry. And once again, you just come face to face with the fact that people suffer what they suffer until they learn how not to.
You might say they had made their bed and they had just decided to go ahead and keep on lying in it.
Right, until it got miserable enough for them to do something about, it was too easy for them to just come and say, oh, here, take care. It was like, Mama, pick me up and carry me. Well, guess what? You got to learn to walk. And people don't like to be told that they've got to learn to walk.
Well, let me ask you now about the the demons, where they reside, you say, in the fifth density?
This is what we call it. It's a completely ethereal state of existence, has no physical manifestation.
Are they eternal beings? I mean, they've always existed and always will exist, or?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they cycle around, I'm sure. I think that when some of these demonic type beings, of course, their objective is to become one with God in the same sense as those who serve others, seek to become one. But they seek to become one with God by stuffing all of existence inside themselves, by absorbing all other beings, to self, because they perceive God as the center of their being. And what happens is they gain so much weight, so to speak, that at a certain point they implode on themselves.